This is the GPL Podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
Eat that Todd, eat that Schloss, eat that Drew.
So how was the flights in and out of Penn State last weekend?
Pretty good, actually. I was home by I was home by 10.
Wow, we just got finished.
That sounds kind of weird.
Kind of sounds weird. Sound like 99 Disney Lions.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening. Welcome to the GPL Podcast. Let's have me on the screen there instead of Viggs. But since Viggs is here, let's bring us both in. Viggs, how goes it tonight?
It's going awesome. I got to go to both the Gopher games this last weekend. Youth hockey season well underway. We've got some games coming up. We might get some snow in the forecast. I mean, we are into hockey season.
It was 80 yesterday. Come on.
Yeah, the golf courses were busy, I think, yesterday, but not so much tomorrow.
Well, let's see if this guy's been golfing. Cappy is joining us, of course. He's going to help us preview the BigTen season. Let's bring him in. Cappy, how's the golf game going?
It's pretty non-existent, actually.
Oh, no.
And I was just in Florida for a month, and I had no interest.
So how is the place in Florida?
Place is good. Lots of trees, branches down, some fences, but the house is intact.
That's
and
good.
Most everything around is in pretty good shape. Now, the beach areas, I'm about 4 miles off the beach. That's still...
That's good, though, that you're far enough away.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, as much as people want to live down there, man, every year it seems to be getting a little more dangerous and whatnot. So, no, we're very fortunate. Honestly, after it, the weather was fantastic. Kind of took all the humidity out and made it really nice. But yeah, no golf for me. Viggs is
no golf.
Can't fathom that. But I don't know. I just haven't been in the mood because most of the time I play by myself down there, and I just wasn't in the mood. I'd rather be with some friends to do it. So I just
that makes sense.
bagged it.
I just remember you sending both Viggs and I a Twitter message. The last plane out, it was like the day before, right before the airport closed, that you got out of there. So
I had monitored it. Like, they announced the airport was closing that day, and I had already moved my flight up a day.
Well, that's good.
And they said as long as this storm didn't change and get faster, the speed up, because they obviously they wanted to get everyone out. They wanted to get their planes out of there too. That airport was closed. The Sarasota airport was closed for at least a week after because of damage. So, fortunate that I was able to get out and then get back and enjoy. But I'm ready now. I got hockey. Let's go. I mean, I've been watching all. It's nice to watch it from down there, but I'm ready to get into real action now.
Well, not everyone was so fortunate as you and your place down there, but we're glad everything's good for you. Viggs, things were good on the weekend for the Gophers as they swept St. Thomas 7-1 and 6-2, and they keep showing, boy, their offense is really good right now.
Yeah, and I was talking to a lot of people at the rink about what I think is different with the offense this year. And it's not just the transition goals. It's the possession, and it's the continuity in the lineup. And you ask these defensemen, why is it so easy for you to jump into the rush? And it's like, well, we have really solid possession. I'm not worried about them turning the puck over, and I'm able to fill spots and fill lanes and get involved. And if you look at the Gopher defense, they are putting up a ton of points. Ryan Chesley and Sim Renzel, 4 goals each, both tied for national leads for defensemen.
We were just kind of talking before here, Snuggerud having a 4-point weekend, and he's maybe still a little disappointed. He's not getting the goals, Viggs. He's getting the assists, but he is still showing a lot of frustration out there when he's not putting that puck in the back of the net. I mean, we can obviously see it.
Yeah, you can just kind of see he's kind of shaking his head and can't believe he's not able to beat goalies with some of these shots he's getting. But he is contributing offensively. He's getting possession. He's putting pucks on net. He got what Eric Shearhorn called an OV assist on Saturday night when his stick broke, and the goalie still couldn't handle the shot, and there's a rebound right there.
Mm-hmm.
There are things he's doing that are effective. He's not one of those players where he's taking unnecessary chances and detracting from the overall game of the Gophers. He's contributing. He's just not getting the goals like he'd want or expect.
On the St. Thomas side, Cappy, I was just amazed at how undisciplined they were the entire weekend, but more specifically Saturday. They took 2 5-minute majors. Rico Blase most likely got the penalty for yelling at the refs too much.
I've seen that before close in person.
Yes.
He was much younger and more, wouldn't say as mature as he is now, but yeah, our Italian bloods get flowing sometimes. And
yes, and it got himself into trouble. It did. It put him down, 2 men, and essentially it kind of 3 men when one of their defensemen or players' stick broke.
I mean, right now you don't want to do that against Minnesota now. Clearly, I mean, they're just very confident, and from what I've watched and you look the way the lines are set up, they're very spread out. Oliver Moore hasn't done a ton, but he's not playing with Snuggerud. They almost forced that a little last year, knowing that, hey, we got this young guy, dynamic centerman, let's put him with the sophomore. We're happy to have him back. Let's put him with him. And I think they've got the lines. I don't know if is there a fourth line? I mean, you could say there's a first line right now because they're like the most productive line in college hockey right now, I think. But the other 3 lines are pretty well balanced. And just to go back to Snuggerud, I'm like, he's just him being on the ice, no matter what he's doing, is a benefit generally, especially in the offensive zone, because teams are going to be looking for him, and they're going to just be distracted by him, whether he's got the puck or not, knowing he could be a problem. And I think that just alone makes him an added bonus, if you want to call it that, in the offensive zone, especially like a face-off play or the power play. When they see him, he's cocked and ready to go. Teams are going to key on that. And it opens up other doors, and they have plenty of other guys that can score.
Yeah. Kind of what Cappy said there, Viggs. I think Motzko might have done it on purpose because on the Saturday lineup sheet, Kurth, Clark, and Wood was the 4th listed line on the line chart.
Yeah, and if you want to see who is getting the most ice time, we've seen that rolled out to College Hockey News where they are posting time on ice now, which is kind of a nice way to see who is actually getting the most ice time. And from what you can tell for Minnesota, it's pretty balanced. I think the disparities in ice time usually come from power play and special teams, not so much 5-on-5, even strength play. But I think the one big thing from Saturday that I took away, and I wrote about it for Gopher Puck Live, was they tweaked their power play just a little bit, putting Snuggerud down along the goal line, bringing Wood to that off wing. And like Cappy says, when Snuggy's on the ice, everybody's trying to keep an eye on him. And so when they move Snuggerud around, that forces other teams to kind of get out of their game plan and maybe get a little sloppy. And Brody Lamb was the benefactor of that adjustment, because he had plenty of space to get to rebounds, he even had a nice one-timer, and it just gave the Gophers a lot of a different look on the power play, and I thought it made them more fluid and less robotic, just trying to get the puck to Snuggerud for those one-timers. Now they're creative, they're making plays, they're creating chaos, and the penalty kill is lost against them.
So will they stick to that, though? Because we've seen sniffs of that in the past, Viggs, where they've moved Snuggerud around, but usually the next game or two, he's back to where he was. They really need to stick to that if they want it to be effective, don't you think?
Well, I hope that they change it up all the time. And other teams don't know how to game plan for Minnesota's power play. Because if they can score like they did on Saturday and teams adjust to that, then the Gophers go back putting Snuggerud higher in the zone. Or they just kind of change it up mid-power play sometimes and go where the space is. I think that's what really can make a power play dynamic and dangerous, is when they can adjust to all kinds of different kills.
Best player best power plays you see usually are not the stagnant. Okay, this guy's got to be in this spot. This guy's got to be here. Watch Michigan's power play the last couple of years. It's not Seamus Casey has to be up at the top. He moved around. Luke Hughes.
Yes.
Those guys were moving. They were everywhere. Those guys, defensemen would be on the goal line. They didn't care where they were, and they snapped it around. And teams get lost because they get out of their structures. They're like, I'm supposed to be in front of this guy. Oh, wait, he's down there. Now I move it. And it's a split second of not knowing where you're supposed to be, and a skilled team will bury you. So exactly on Beek's point is you want him to be different guy in a different spot every time. And I think over time, it just almost happens organically where, okay, he might end up back in that spot, but so what? That maybe he scores a goal, maybe he gets the assist, or maybe he's the decoy.
So Brody Lamb with the big hat trick, the natural hat trick, all power play goals, Viggs. That was kind of your headline of your article on GPL was the play of the power play. And obviously what went into that is St. Thomas's not disciplined play.
Yeah, the Tommies, I think we're expecting a little bit more out of this weekend. You know, they were the coach's pick to win the CCHA. They brought in a lot of older grad transfer type guys to fill out this roster and compete. And their students were there on Saturday filling up the lower bowl. They were loud. They were ready to go. St. Thomas scored the first goal both nights, and the games just slipped away from them, and the frustration came out. You know, I asked Rico about that after the game. He's like, yep, we're going to learn from this. Unacceptable. We will move on and learn. And the flip side, Motzko is happy with his team not getting into the mud. You know, they played above it, and they scored on the power play, which is what you want your team to do in college, because you can't get caught up in these little tick-for-tack things all the time. You know, these games are pretty important for pairwise, I think, for Minnesota to make sure they get both wins. And if you drop a game or a point or go to overtime, you know, that's going to impact you at the end of the year. And Minnesota took care of business. And looking at their pairwise potential, you know, they took essentially 7 of 9 points from their NCHC games playing Omaha and Duluth. Now they take 6 from CCHA, and they took 3 from Atlantic Hockey. So they're doing pretty well in these non-conference games, which is so important.
And I think that self-discipline was coming from the players. You know, I could hear on the bench Friday night, guys, I could hear guys talking, don't get into that. Don't be baited into this stuff. Let them be the undisciplined team. And I think that's kind of key, Cappies. When the team is telling each other to do this, you know how important it is to them.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it just clicks early in the season now. Like, obviously, they've had a lot of success, so it's easy to be positive, and they're beating these teams, and that's great. And you know, there'll be some bumps in the road. It ain't going to be perfect all season, but you get a team like the Tommies, you know, they know how good Minnesota is. They know they're kind of the little brother right now, and they're trying. You're trying to be physical with a skilled team like that, but then you go a little too far, and then you start losing, and then the frustration builds. I mean, when you get beat 13-3, it festers in you. And I'm sure Rico's a good coach. As much as I give him crap about it, you know, he can be fired up on the bench, and he was a good coach at Miami, but he'll get them going. I just think Minnesota's caught something early in the season, you know, just good vibes. Like I said, like the line's almost, like you said, everyone's playing a lot. So, you know, where's the fourth line? You don't really see it. I think Jimmy Clark has just been I loved him at the end of the year. Well, I loved him all year. You could see it was like almost like a red shirt. Like, we're going to play him, but you could see his development in a year. And then, you know, you bring in the big 91. I love it. So, you know, the Tommies will be there, but the Gophers, it's really tough. So I did a BC game, the Michigan State game. That was their first game of the year, and they looked really good, but in a different way. Like, their roster is not as good as Minnesota's from 1 to 19 skater-wise. They've got those 6-7 studs. I haven't seen. I saw Denver play. I like them, but I think the Gophers have skater-wise 1 to 19 the best roster in the country.
Well, I like to hear that.
That's just from the early what I've seen.
So a lot of learning from this weekend, Vigs. Learn to stay disciplined yourself, and even on the St. Thomas side, they need to play more disciplined, and they could be successful if they just play smarter.
Yeah, I think St. Thomas will be a better team as the year goes on, but they just ran into a buzzsaw with Minnesota. They've got so many guys playing well together right now. Aaron Hughlin doesn't score a lot of goals, scores a spectacular spin around goal, to extend the lead on Saturday.
I think he could score more goals, and but he plays like this disciplined two-way game, which I think is going to help him in his professional career down the road. I think he could score more. I mean, you saw that goal. You just talked about it. I think he could score some more goals.
And it sounds like that line might be a matchup line for Minnesota. Motzko is kind of hinting about that on his coach's show this week. With Nevers and Hughlin, that is just a foundation of a line that's going to be really hard to play against. And Middlestad's done a good job playing a checking role. Falloon is looking like a really good late add for Minnesota as they added him late to the recruiting process. He's physical, he's big, he competes. Whoever those three are going to be tough to play against.
And Vigs, you talk about that Hughlin goal. It was a surprise to the crowd because he just did that first one way and then the other way and flipped it so fast. I was at the top of the main bowl shooting, and it was right in front of me. And the crowd was like a gasp, then a cheer. It was kind of an odd thing that happened. Then people are like, it's in the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, it just looked like he was going to slow up the play, wait for someone to join the rush, and then 1 second later, it's in the net.
Well, it was pretty good. Obviously, a successful weekend. Just keep building. But now we need to hear from some of our sponsors.
Are you a hard worker? Then you need a soap that works just as hard as you do. Look no further than Duke Cannon and their seasonal selections, including Trophy Game, Buck Moon, and the ever-popular Candy Corn. Grab yourself Duke Cannon's big-ass brick of soap today and try it out yourself. Climb aboard the Duke Cannon train and get the best in men's hair care, beard care soaps, deodorant, and cologne. Smell like you give a damn with Duke Cannon. Work harder, smell better. It's tailgating season, and Cub Foods is your go-to grocery and liquor store. Why scurry around town picking up all your game day needs when you can go to one store? Look no further than Cub to grab your hamburgers, hot dogs, brats, chips, veggie platters, deli cold cuts, party trays, and desserts all in one place. Be sure to hit up Cub Liquor before you head out to grab drinks all your tailgaters are sure to love. Go to your local Cub on your next shopping trip for all your tailgating essentials.
And of course, we thank Cub Foods and Duke Cannon for sponsoring the GPL podcast. All right, segment number 2 here is now Vigo's top 20. And of course, you still have Denver at the top. Until they lose Vigo, they shouldn't move anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, they've taken care of business. They welcomed Wisconsin. Little bit of a scare the first night, and then the next night, not so much. I heard Hastings talking to Adam Odon on their podcast this week, and Hastings knows he has a lot of work to do with this team. They've got one line right now that's going for them, and the rest is kind of a struggle. And so when you go to Denver and you play that team, you're going to be in for a long weekend.
BC, Minnesota moves back up. BU down a little bit. Some people probably disagree with you. I guess I was looking ahead at some of the matchups this weekend. Cornell will get to see if they could stay number 1.
Someone is still voting Cornell 1. Minnesota's got the 1 vote. Denver's got the rest. I definitely was intrigued by the BC Western Michigan game this week.
Oh.
Western gave them one heck of a game.
They gave them the game, that goal. Terrible turnover, but whatever.
I think Western, will probably make the tournament for the 4th time in a row under Frischweiler. I think they've got some things going there. They've got good young players. They're exciting to watch. They've got good goaltending. So that'll be fun to watch there.
St. Cloud moving up. They have been playing very well, except for that one loss to Michigan.
Yeah, taking care of business with Augustana. probably a team I should have had in the poll last week.
Yeah.
Then they get swept. Tight games. Probably, could have gone either way for both those games. But St. Cloud came out on top. I think they're expected to be pretty good this year. Augustana, I think they might be the dark horse in CCHA.
In North Dakota, didn't they sweep? No, they split with Boston College, right?
They split. They whooped them on night one.
Mhm.
Night two, North Dakota made some mistakes. BU took advantage of that. They're a talented high-end team. I think they were shocked a little bit by the Ralph. And when the Ralph gets going, that's a tough environment for young players. BC, BU, those are young teams right now. And they're going to have those roller coaster games and series until they get things figured out. But they're very talented.
What do you know about Providence? I know our guy Carl Fish is there, and I actually ran into Carl's mother at the game Saturday night with her Minnesota sweatshirt on, supporting her son's former team. Apparently, she said I think they won in a shootout or something like that. What's been going on with Providence? They've been doing pretty well as well.
Yeah, they look like they could be a team in Hockey East. I might be a little high on them, but that's where I had them coming into the season. The program that they've got there right now is pretty successful, and they're a deep team. So I think they're going to be a tough team for anyone to play right now.
Cappy, do you have any thoughts on Vigo's top 20 here?
I mean, mine isn't a ton different. I had top 5. My flip was Michigan State. I had a BU. And then I had Maine, one ahead of North Dakota. Bottom, I had all those except for UNH. No UNH. Other than that, it's pretty close, within I can't remember exactly where I put everybody. I might have still had Michigan, maybe like 11. But it's all pretty good. The Big Ten now has got 6 teams in the, like I said, I went on a rant on a podcast. Like, I don't think that there should be rankings until November, but, Augustana, I mean, just, those games were pretty even. Like, St. Cloud is not winning any free beauty contests, but they're getting W's.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to give them credit for that. But Augustana's close.
Yeah.
Like you said, dark horse, man. I got to imagine playing in that rink, which they haven't. They've been on the road for most everything they've done, right? I mean, they swept Omaha, which I see Omaha's gone from yours as well. They were in mine too. It's half the people that vote on this don't pay attention enough. They just watch their East Coast stuff, or people out West just do their West Coast stuff. Because there's no way you'd have Omaha ahead of Augustana last week. You can't. It's this early in the season. You're only getting it based on your reputation of them being a brand new school. You can't go into someone else unless. I mean, even if Omaha was number 2 in the country and Augustana wasn't ranked in the second week of the season, you go into their barn and you sweep them, and in the second night you beat them 4-0. It's not a big deal. The pairwise will figure it all out. But Augustana's setting themselves up pretty good right now with those, non-conference games.
You mentioned your podcast there. I see you're doing something with Ben Holden. And Ben Holden's busy. He's doing stuff all over the place on podcasts these days. Tell us about what you're doing.
Yeah, we're just it's just all about hockey, NHL, college. If there's junior stuff, it's just something for us to talk hockey and have fun with. We'll see what happens with it, but I love Ben. I wish I was doing more games with him. We have a good time when we do them. So he came to me wanting to do this. He's doing another one with Carmen, former Gopher.
We're going to have Carmen on in a couple of weeks talking about that. That's kind of like a post-career
I like that idea.
Podcast,
Where'd you go after you're done? And you're getting NHL guys to, Colby Cohen was on last week. So it's a cool idea. So he's just trying to branch out, keep himself busy, because right now, the way that, I love, this year is, you look at the TV schedule, and the Gophers have their least amount of games ever on BTN, but this is the most games that Big Ten Network's ever had for Big Ten hockey, which is the opposite of what you thought coming in. But
we did.
Notice there's none till December, except for the one game we did, which means it's
correct
all post football, which makes sense because there's so many teams, and volleyball with so many teams right now.
Yes,
the other sports, but they we've got a ton of games. There's what, 20, 30 games, 31, I think, with the
There's
playoffs.
a ton.
So it's going to be fun. December, there's a ton of games now because you have 3 consecutive nights that first week, and then you have a doubleheader and a single game the next week, and then it's the break. And then you guys won't care as much, but then the Wrigley thing is great because that's another 3 or 4, and then the women's game. So I don't know how they're doing it, but you were worried about it, and there's more, and they're not using Minnesota, which is generally their biggest ratings boost.
I had heard some rumblings that Minnesota wanted actually a little less coverage because it gave them more flexibility in their local market here to play games at times they wanted to.
I'm sure
yeah,
it's a battle, but also the Big Ten wants their marquee team on the network. I mean, that nobody gets to say, like, this day and age, I love Minnesota and how they love to have that, but nobody gets to say in that anymore in college sports. You think the Golden Gopher football gets that, or Ohio State football? I mean, the rating, the networks want them because they rate well. I mean, Minnesota hockey is wanted on anywhere because they rate well and tons of people watch. So I love that, but you got to spread the wealth a little bit.
But Viggs, it is giving us, starting in, I think late November, early December, a lot of 5 o'clock Saturday games, which I am more than happy to go to. I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's for the Gophers is just trying to get more families growing to be fans. So that 5 o'clock game helps for that. So it'll be a little bit of a change.
So I wanted to get in your thoughts, both of your thoughts on the rest of the Big Ten this year. We've seen it already. Hastings is struggling at Wisconsin after losing some marquee players. And I know, Viggs, you've talked about, he wants to have his type of guys, his type of players, personalities, everything like that. He's trying that, and it might take him a little more time than he thought.
Well, I think at Minnesota State, he had the benefit of having these older guys come into the program who could still score goals in these tight games. And if you take a snapshot of what Wisconsin's done so far, I want to say they have 5 or 6 even strength goals through 6 games. And you can't play that way if you want to win. And he's, chased off, I think, 4 drafted players who transferred out looking for a different place to showcase their talent. And he's had to fill that. And I think it's been hard for him to get enough players to be competitive at even strength. And you can have the best defensive structure in college hockey, but if you're only getting 1 or 2 goals a game, you're going to be in trouble. And they have a tough schedule this year.
They do.
They're playing against good teams. That's not something necessarily that Minnesota State did all the time. He had sort of a softer schedule to ramp up and get guys playing in the right mindset and gaining some confidence. And it's just kind of a shock to the system right now. And I didn't have Wisconsin in my top 10. I don't think I had them in my top 20 at the start of the year. I was kind of expecting this to happen this year based on looking at their returning players and their recruits coming in. I thought it was going to be a struggle. The coaches didn't agree with me. They were still pretty high in the conference, and national writers put them higher in their top 20s. And, it's a bit of a fall from grace, but, I expected Penn State and Ohio State to be better than Wisconsin this year.
But Cappy, excuse me. I don't think anyone saw Lindenwood coming in with Owen Bartoszewicz in goal and almost sweeping the Badgers. Badgers made a nice comeback and won it in overtime. Nobody saw that.
Yeah, I don't know. First games of the year. North Dakota lost their first game. It was exhibition, but it's their first game, game action. But yeah, I looked at their roster going into Saturday night against Denver because I'm doing their games. I'm going to be in South Bend this weekend.
Okay.
On Peacock doing the Wisconsin Notre Dame series. So obviously I've watched those games, and I'm looking at their roster, and their first line is got some nice numbers. The bottom 9 had 0 goals. 0 goals and 9 forwards on a And look, small sample, but 5 games. That can't. Nobody's gonna win with that. I don't care unless your D are scoring 6, 7 goals, 8, whatever. You can't win like that. And there's returning players in that bottom 9 that you're like, Tassie is a good player. Fitzgerald, those guys have done nothing. Laskowski had over 40 points at RIT. So I think you're looking at those players and hoping they repeat from other places, but they're coming from different conferences. Everyone's getting mashed together, and you hope it gels, and it still might. Like, I almost think this is almost maybe could be a good thing. They were great last year, surprised early team, right? And then at the end they slipped away. Maybe it's the opposite this year as this team grows. And obviously goaltending. I mean, last year he did not. I talked to him before the season. He did not know if McClellan was going to play or Grame, and McClellan ends up winning the Richter Award. Like, you can't bang on that every year. And I think Scarponi's a solid goalie, and I think Grame is pretty good too. But man, there's a lot of work to be done there, and I can't wait to see Friday how this starts because I got to imagine they actually played really well at Denver on Friday. And it was 2-2 in the third period. They had the lead, and I watched the first 2 periods. I'm like, okay, that's the Wisconsin I thought I was going to see. Like, they weren't great, but they were better than Denver for a lot of parts of that game. And then in the third period, they made one mistake. A guy got a shot that, coming down the slot, bang, 3-2, and then empty netter. So, and then Saturday just looked like, Denver found their mojo a little bit more. But, you finally saw the first 2 periods. I was like, that was the best period I saw Wisconsin play. I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest. It's like a good soap opera, to be honest.
Yes.
That you're getting something interesting that you didn't expect, which happens every year in the Big Ten. Ohio State being 5-1, they haven't played anybody great. If you count Wisconsin as, they were ranked then. But they're getting great goaltending. Their veteran D are back, and they get timely goal scoring. That's always going to be their thing. I don't know if they're ever going to get the big offense going. So there's just a lot going on, and it's early. It's early. It's not November until Friday.
And like Cappy said there, Viggs, they lose quite a few first-round players going to other schools, but that also doesn't help the players that were there. I mean, those better players elevate your maybe less significant players. And now they're gone, and these guys maybe don't have something to build on to get better themselves.
Well, it definitely felt like last year they had a Wisconsin-style roster. They had plenty of talent. They had enough players, enough offensive skill. And then you add the Minnesota State transfers to kind of bolster that group. And that just allowed them to have success. And now this year, they lose some of that talent. They lose some of that skill. And it's going to be a lot harder. Like, there's not going to be as much time and space for these other guys to play. They're going to be now the focal points, and they have to carry the water.
And you mentioned your Ohio State team there, Cappy, and they're leading the league. 6 points.
5 points. 5 points.
Oh, that's right. Yep, 5 points.
Got one. Yeah,
they did.
Look, like I said, their other games, they tied Lindenwood, right? The first they've had their first game was rough, and then they won Saturday, and then they've won. They won since. They beat teams. You look around the country now; it is getting harder and harder to beat teams back, like sweep teams. No matter which team you're playing. Look at Notre Dame a couple times. I mean, look at Omaha. Got swept by Augustana. So there's nobody guaranteed. There's no guaranteed sweeps out there, really. Maybe Stonehill, and no disrespect to them, but that's just this very, very baby of a program starting. And I watched Long Island. I watched Notre Dame getting ready for this week. That team could skate. They didn't have a ton of skill, but they put pressure on you, and they were physical. And Coach Jackson even said it today when I talked to him: is we won a game too easily Friday, and we didn't learn our lesson from Alaska, and we gave this team a little hope early, and then they just buried us. And it wasn't even that close of a game in the second, third period. So, for Ohio State, they went and did a home and home at Bowling Green. gave up 1 goal. You know, they're goaltending, they're splitting. You're seeing in the Big Ten, you got Minnesota, Ohio State, Wisconsin is doing it, and what's the third? There's teams that are splitting their net every other game right now. In the league. Notre Dame is doing it too with their young guy, and they have this Say kid from Mercyhurst. They're just doing a good job right now. It's early. You know, we'll see what happens, but I think you got confidence early. You're building like a good mojo, just like Minnesota is. That in that locker room that you can maybe, if you struggle at some point, you can go back and say, hey, let's go back and remember those early, you know, those good vibes to get us back on track. So I'm happy for my program. You know, everyone picked them 7. What do the coaches know? I guess apparently, right? You know, because Wisconsin, it's hard to know. You look at roster, you don't know if these puzzle pieces are going to fit in when you got all these transfers. It's just how it is now, and maybe it will fit. They just don't fit right now.
I feel like the coaches have done this to Ohio State a couple times where they've picked them at the bottom of the league and they've surprised it and been, you know, in that upper half of the league.
Sure.
I think last year Rolla kind of lost his way with all the transfers coming into the program, and they just weren't good fits, either attitude or personality or discipline. And they just didn't look like the Buckeyes that we've been used to seeing the last couple of years. This year, maybe a little bit of a reset with the roster, getting more of his guys. I'll be interested to see how they do over the course of the season.
Yeah, they're not as talented. I mean, you have a guy that now is a stud, Mason Lorai, in the NHL. Like his playoffs, you're like, whoa. You know, they had McWard, and then they had up front, they had I'm blanking on some names. They had more goal scorers. Gustav West. You know, they had a lot of guys that could score. Right now, you know, last year they lost a lot of that, and they don't get the big name guys to come in or the high end recruits. They get good recruits, but it takes them time. Max Montez didn't score. He had a goal, maybe 1 in the first half of the season, and then he had a pretty good second half, and now that's got him. Now as a sophomore, he got 5 goals in 6 games. So, you know, you just hope for some of those guys. You're like, oh, this guy's a 4-year player, to not take 2.5 years to become a top 6 forward, say, and, you know, speed up you want to call rebuild, regrowth, whatever. So you just hope for the players to gain confidence and get better faster. And, you know, you put them in the best situations and hope they produce.
Well, let's look at some of the Michigan teams here, Viggs. Michigan State, they started kind of not great at home against BC with, I think it was a 3 or 4-0 loss. But really, since then, they've really kind of rebounded and done pretty well and kind of deserve to be that top 5 type of team.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a great goaltender. Trey Augustine is
Yes.
probably one of the best goalies in college hockey. That's going to help them stay in every game. I do wonder how their blue line is going to hold up over the year. You know, they had Levshinov last year, and he was a lot of their offense from the back end, special teams. He did a lot. So I just don't know, looking at their roster, who's going to be that guy for them this year. I haven't watched them closely enough, but that's probably my biggest question mark. You know, you look at Michigan and Minnesota, strength from the defense getting involved in the offense is obviously going to be a positive for them. I don't know if it's going to be that way for Sparty, but they do have a lot of talent up front. You know, Adam Nightingale's done a good job of recruiting those high-end talent guys. I think they've got some youth there, which will lead to those roller coaster games early, but that's what will make them dangerous, is good goaltending and goal scoring.
You called that game between BC and Michigan State at Munn, Cappy. I know you weren't too hot on them then. How are you feeling about them now after kind of recovering from that opening game, opening season?
Yeah, well,
jitters?
I was surprised. Well, no, they had actually played a week before. And this was BC's first game. They had gone to Lake State and swept them. So I just thought they would come out with the advantage, at least early in the game, right? And they looked like the jumpy team. And BC looked like they'd played 6 games already, and I just think they're just really talented and confident. And I think Michigan State, you know, their first game back after winning the Big Ten there, the crowd was hyped, and they just looked jittery. And, you know, they're not a team that can chase games. They've got good players, but they don't have the elite. Isaac Howard, I think, is the one guy that maybe can like really with his elite talent. They just have really a bunch of really good players, and I think with Adam Nightingale, I think he's just starting. Like I think his recruits are gonna become a little different. I think he's gonna start getting a little more of those, elite guys. He's got some U.S. national team program guys coming in. He lost one this year because Potter wanted to play hockey, college a year early, but he was a top high project prop, high pick guy. Lev Shinoff is just he's a guy like he didn't have a great game in the regional last year against Western Michigan, but you know what? He made an elite play in overtime to win the game, to tie the game. When they were down a goal, he made a great pass. They tied the game, and your Vig's right. They don't have that guy. They've got a solid decor, but just not that guy that's going to jump off pace. No Sam Renzel on the team or Chess. I mean, I can name 4 Gophers that, they just don't have those guys. They have really good players, and, I don't know how it'll stack up in those big games when they're playing the elite teams. Like you saw, they came back and won Saturday. I was pretty surprised. I wasn't able to watch that game. I was traveling on Saturday, the BC, but hey, that just shows you that the team's got some jam in them. They're not going to lay down for the good teams.
And Stramel had 2 goals in that game, and if he can find his way
on Friday, he made a really soft play in the neutral zone to get BC a goal. He's a key guy because he could be one of those game changer guys. He's got that elite kind of size to him. I don't think he doesn't play maybe as big as he should, but maybe Adam Nightingale's nudging him in that direction.
And certainly the Wild don't want to see him as a bust like he had shown so far when he was at Wisconsin Bigs.
Yeah, he had a lot of confidence issues at Wisconsin, just not fitting the style of Mike Hastings' team. Adam Nightingale kind of gives him a second life here to make something of it, and he's got the opportunity. He'll get the ice time, and he's got some talent. It's just something's missing there.
Super young guy. Not to cut you off,
Yeah.
but he's only 19 as a junior still. I think Adam Nightingale told me that 3 times in a couple conversations we had, just to remind us that he's still a teenager, even though he's a junior hockey-wise.
We've heard a lot of that with Wood, actually. He's only 19-year-old junior. Okay.
Must be nice to be that big and skilled. And he's showing his playmaking. I think everyone thought he was going to come in and score 30 and have 5 assists. And Wood's, kind of showing his versatility of his game. I think that's, everyone heard about him, but you don't know him that well until you get to see him day in and day out. And you're seeing maybe a guy that's a little different, not in a bad way, just a little different than you expected.
I think the biggest thing with Wood that surprises me is how good he is at holding on to pucks and buying time and space to make plays.
Big, that reach.
He uses the reach, and it's just, and he changes the angle on his shot almost every time. He kind of carries the puck in different spots and can release it from different ways. He had that spectacular goal on Friday night where he just found a spot between the shoulder and the bar, and he had a great quote. He's like, "What'd you see? Enough."
A puck size hole.
Puck size hole. Confident player.
So how about a couple quick hits on Michigan Vigs and Notre Dame?
For Michigan, they're obviously a high-end talent team. I just don't know if they have the elite talent that we've seen out of them the last couple years. They don't have the Quinn Hughes or the Adam Fantilli, that's going to run their team. So I kind of wonder how their style is going to translate this season. They are going to put up points, but they're also going to give up a lot of scoring chances against. So I'm still interested to see how Naurato handles running a program. I've always been a little concerned as like he was just handed this job without the resume of figuring out how to run a program like Michigan. They did give him the Coach of the Year award, but that was not necessarily his program that he built to get that award. He just figured it out during the year.
I'll say this, just from watching them early, they're going to play it. They're not going to be as much run and gun. They're back end might be their strength, and I mean more in a defensive style of team. Like Tim Lovell is really good, has put up a lot of points. He was a transfer, hit 36 with Arizona State, but he's not the Quinn Hughes, Luke Hughes, Seamus Casey. He's a good power play guy, but he's not as much of a risk taker. He kind of takes it back. You got Jacob Truscott and Ethan Edwards. So they have more of a defensive defenseman group there. So I think they're going to maybe win more games 3-1. You saw them shut out St. Cloud. Both those games were very low scoring. We haven't seen a Michigan game. They went to Arizona State. God forbid they blew a 3-1 lead with a minute to go in the game, or their record looks, that's a bad, tie, if you want to call it. But I see them, their lineup isn't as deep either. So they're going to have to win games, maybe 4-2s instead of the 6-4 games that we've loved to see. The offense, I love seeing their offense go, but I just think they're going to be a little different because of their roster. And, I think Coach Niles will be fine because his recruiting classes the next 2 years are ridiculous. So, even if they have a little down year this year, I think it's going to flip back around pretty quick.
Quick thoughts on Notre Dame. You'll get to see them this week, Cappy.
Yeah, they're kind of a one-line team right now too.
Yeah.
Cole Knubel's had a great start. You watched him last year, you're like, this guy's going to be dynamic. He just couldn't put the puck in the net early in the season. Much like a Max Montez at Ohio State, had a good second half, had 8 or 9 goals, and it's just jump started him this year. And they've got a couple of transfers, Kumlin and Murphy. They bring in those Miami guy and then a Princeton guy, and then a goal. This Owen Say kid is leading the country in goals against and save percentage. He's only played 3 games. They split. But they're going to, they just got to find a little more offense. They're going to be offensive starved again. Even if Cole Knubel gets 40 or 50 points this year, they're going to have to find secondary scoring if they're going to want to be in the top half of the Big Ten.
All right, we'll get to Penn State here coming up in a bit. But first, Viggs, we need to talk about Jimmy's.
Every time I go to Cub, I just see the Jimmy's right when I come in. I see the apples. And now that we're getting closer to our winter time, it's just apple season. It's caramel season. If you don't want to have apples, pretzels. Use your finger. Put it on some ice cream. Caramel's great on everything. Available in original and sea salt. Find Jimmy's at your local grocery store today.
And, of course, we cannot forget about Lunch Bucket Hockey.
Gotta love when there's a couple local guys who've got a couple barley pops and they're brainstorming ideas and they come up with a company like Lunch Bucket Hockey. It's the apparel brand for the hardworking grit and grind players that would do anything for their teammates. Check them out, lunchbuckethockey.com. If you're looking for men's league jerseys, have a little bit of flair on the ice, this is the place for you.
And, of course, we thank Lunch Bucket Hockey for sponsoring the GPL podcast. All right, we'll get to Minnesota Penn State in a minute, but I noticed that there's quite a few fun matchups this weekend. Viggs and Cappy. UND is going to, number 1 or number 10 Cornell. Michigan's going to BU. BC is going to St. Cloud. It looks like a pretty darn good weekend here, Viggs.
Yeah, I think people are a little upset on the Gophers not having a schedule like this. And one of the reasons why is because all these teams were committed to play each other this season. So we're getting some great matchups across college hockey. I am definitely looking forward to that Cornell game. Cornell's supposed to have a good team. They've got great goaltending. They've got a lot of depth returning. These ECAC schools kind of have a tough uphill battle because they start later. They play less games. They didn't have a lot of the transfers, the extra years because of the COVID. So they're kind of handicapped. So it'll be really interesting to see them come out of the gate right away this weekend.
And Cappy, we've got Michigan going into Boston University. Ooh.
It should be fun. But again, they're the less, both talented teams, but they're less firepower of a team than BU is. So they're gonna have to be the disciplined team there, and their goaltending is a little. Logan Stein's been pretty good so far, but they're kind of. There's only a few teams that have a go-to goalie right now. So it should be fun. The the new Cole Hudson is in there, and his one brother is still there. And then Iserman's scoring a few goals. I know that's a sore subject for Gopher fans.
No, I don't think it is.
Whatever.
Yeah.
He's doing exactly what he is. He's going to be that same guy. I think that's why he dropped, is because he's not one-dimensional, but he's a goal scorer. He's a power play guy. And, that's probably why he dropped in the draft rankings, because he doesn't have a lot of other parts of his game, but he's really good at some of those offensive ones.
And then, Riggs, we got BC coming in to play St. Cloud State.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch. We've seen St. Cloud play these tight games with Augustana. We got to see them against Minnesota. Having that high-end flying team of BC coming in will be fun to watch and see how they handle it. I do think that BC team's a little top-heavy, so it'll be interesting to see how St. Cloud matches up against that, if they're able to slow that group down. I did see that they split up that top line a little bit for some balance this last weekend, but then they put them back together. So who knows what's going to happen there, but it should be exciting hockey.
Will the big guys make any difference? The last school has got it.
Like Ryan Leonard?
No, the big ice.
Oh, the big ice.
At St. Cloud. It's like the last
one.
The last vestige of big ice is at St. Cloud. It's the only place that still has it.
I think sometimes teams that are not as experienced on the big ice can lose the power play feel, because they take that extra space out wide, and then they're farther from the net. So the game kind of slows down because they can use that extra space. And again, sometimes the big ice helps a team play defensive hockey. It's kind of counterintuitive, but you have, more opportunity to get to the center of the ice and play defense.
And then we've got Penn State coming into Mariucci, and where Penn State is definitely going to see their former goalie, at least one of the games this weekend, Cappy, Mr. Soulier. He's been playing every second game, Saturday nights.
Yeah.
It should be fun.
I would think so. I'd imagine I don't see Bob changing anything right now in terms of the goaltending rotation. Penn State's the same type of team as they've always been. They got a little better, a guy that got hurt late his sophomore year, Ben Schoen, missed all of last year, has come back. He's been playing with Aiden Fink. That's been a really good line. I mean, anyone can play with Aiden Fink is going to, but their biggest thing, and they had the worst goal, and I hate to say this because Liam Soulier was part of it, but they had the worst goaltending in the country statistically last year. And the guy they brought in, Arseny Sergeyev, is pretty good. Does he have to be outstanding for them to be good? No, I think he's got to be average to above, and I think he could be better than that. If he is, they're got a chance to be in the, you talk about the top half of the Big Ten. There's only 4 teams going to be in the top half, but they got a chance. If he can, win them games or not lose them games, they'll win. They're going to be a tough out because they just play a certain style. They're going to be in games, and if they can get saves from their goaltending, which they didn't get last year, I mean, I'll give Liam some dab. He's here because 2 years ago, he was a overtime away from being in a Frozen Four. So he's got the talent. He could be the guy for the Gophers. He just wasn't last year for Penn State. And so that's the biggest difference is in net for them. If they get anything above average goaltending, they're going to be a tough out.
Now, Viggs, Cappy talks about Penn State's style of hockey. How does that match up with how Minnesota plays now? Because Minnesota can make you pay if you're not smart.
Well, I think one thing with the Penn State style is that if the shots aren't of high quality, they are almost like turnovers. And we've seen Minnesota get out of their end very, very quickly so far this season. So if Penn State is taking these shots from distance that the goalies can handle cleanly and get back to their D and get in transition coming out, it's going to be a long night for Penn State. The biggest issue for Minnesota in the past with Penn State was those shots being mishandled by their goalie and then their defense not clearing out the front of the crease. And what we see with this group of defensemen from Minnesota, everybody except for Mike Kester is pretty big, 6 foot plus, 200 plus size. Kester's not exactly a small guy, but he looks small compared to these other defensemen. So Minnesota is well equipped to protect their house and not give up a lot of grade A opportunities. And we're kind of getting used to the Gophers only giving up, 20 shots a game or less. It probably won't be that against Penn State, but how many dangerous shots will Penn State get? Probably not more than 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, the Penn State, when they're going well, is they're getting those first shots, but it's creating a second and a third, and you wear a team down in the zone, and then that fourth shot is the one that goes in, or or fluky goes in because everyone gets running around. Like you said, if Minnesota is able to get those rebounds and the way they're getting the first pass up to their forwards, if that's happening, then it's going to be feasting time for Minnesota, going in transition. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. I almost think it helps Penn State that now the ice is shrunk down there because, the chase isn't as far to go get those second, third pucks to wear down lines.
Viggs, I remember that always being a big struggle for Minnesota playing Penn State in the past, is that Penn State would get Minnesota bottled up in their defensive zone. And there's many times Minnesota didn't have the skill to make that first quick pass and get it up and out and down the ice. That's a lot different these days.
Yeah, it's totally different. The other thing I've noticing about Minnesota is their wall play breaking out has been very good. Players battling to make that second pass or explode out of contact and gain the neutral zone has been pretty impressive so far.
Or taking the hit to make the pass as well.
Yep, to use their body to protect the puck and buy time.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing I've noticed, Snuggerud do better this year. He's able to handle that contact and make that next play. Matthew Wood's really good at that. You've seen, Mason Nevers and Aaron Hughlin accept contact and make plays. So I think that's been a real strength of this team so far. And against Penn State, it'll be tested. As I've noticed, Penn State is real aggressive at that hash mark inside the blue line area, trying to get turnovers. And if Minnesota is able to win the ice there, it's going to bode well for them.
All right, let's hear some predictions on the weekend. Cappy, you're not going to be you're not here calling any games, so you can call it whatever you want.
I can see, no. Man, I just think right now Minnesota is playing too well. I think they're going to sweep Penn State. I don't think it's going to be any kind of blowouts or anything like that. But I just think Minnesota's on a really big heater right now. And I just don't think it's going to – I like Penn State's team, and I think they've got a goalie that's going to help them. Especially if they win Friday and then you got Soulier playing Saturday, I don't know. I just think that helps Minnesota, honestly, because it's going to make, that second game a little easier to bounce back, whatever you want to call it, be up for. So that's why I think I like the Gophers to get the sweep. Tough, tight series, though. No big blowouts.
What do you think, Viggs?
I think we could easily see a Friday game get away.
Ooh.
And Minnesota could extend the lead.
College hockey, baby.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll see a lot of scoring chances for Minnesota on Friday. And the way that they're finishing right now, I could see, 4, 5, 6 goals, Culvers for the fans. And then Saturday, Cappy brings up a great point. If Soulier gets to start Saturday and Airy gets it Friday, like we've seen so far this season, it really provides a lot of focus for the team. You can hear the guys talk about Soulier. He wasn't made available to the media this week because that's what college hockey coaches do, is they try to hide these guys when these weekends come up. But you could tell all of them are like, he's been a great member of the team, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. We want to win for him, and it'll really focus the squad, I think, even if Friday gets away.
All right.
Where's your prediction?
6 points. It's got to be 6. None of this 5 or anything else. 6 points. Let's beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And then really, Viggs, they might be building up not many teams as much competition, but I think it's true. Winning breeds more winning, breeds confidence, and just can help because they know, they're going to Madison next weekend. Not an easy place to play. And then they'll just kind of keep building until they've got both Michigan schools coming in early December. So building confidence, building wins is all good. no matter the competition.
Yep, and Penn State's been a tough one for them in the past
Mhm.
historically, so it will definitely test them.
Except for last year. I think they were 5-0 against them. So
5-0 last year. Yep.
but that's also,
Penn
you know,
State? No, I called a game Penn State won in Pagula.
well, see, wait, hold on. People were saying that Soulier was 0-5 against the Gophers last year. So maybe they
He
switched to
didn't play in
goalies.
that game. Grannon played in that second game.
Excuse me.
And then obviously that playoff game, I did the playoffs against them, and man, that second game, Penn State was the better team, and they had that offsides on that goal. Actually, the referee caused it because the puck hit his skate and didn't allow the puck to go all the way into, and you couldn't see the review, all blah blah blah. But no, obviously, Minnesota handled them more, and like I said, it was the goal. Like goaltending was a big thing.
Mhm.
They didn't get it. If Penn State can get some goaltending, they got a shot in at least one of the games.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Cappy. Trying to get you to catch up with Molesky. You're getting closer here. If we have you on a little more than just Ohio State, you might catch him.
Hey, Todd's got his own things to worry about right now.
Oh.
No, I kid. I mean, like Todd. It's funny seeing some of his articles in which he's doing stuff a lot on their, like, how they're spending their money with football and how to generate revenue. What was the new thing with the food? The brats and the
brat story.
Yep.
The brat story.
Hey,
That was a great one.
I'm a brat guy. I want to hear all about the food. So, he's got to focus more on Wisconsin. So if we're doing an all Big Ten thing, that's more my lane, right? So, whatever. I love talking hockey. You guys are great. So anytime is always a pleasure.
And what's the name of your podcast with Ben Holden?
Anything hockey. I think it's called.
Yeah, it is something so.
I mean, I love it. I could just sit. It's like me and him are just sitting on a couch talking.
That is true.
It's just fun. We'll see what happens with it, but it's just he always brings it. We do like a 3 stars, and his are always a kind of obscure. Where mine are always like teams or players, because that's what hey, hot player, hot team kind of thing. He'll find some story about some guy that did something cool, which I appreciate that he does that.
Do we know if he's going to be calling any games this year, or is it basically Jason? Was it Jason Ross Jr.?
He's got I was thinking he's got about like 7 or 8 games. I think most are like at Michigan, at Michigan
that's where
State.
he lives.
Keep that. That I think him and Fred will do a lot of that. The whole schedule isn't fully done. I got about 4 or 5 games right now. I got 1 Minnesota game at Ohio State. I have a lot, obviously, doing studio stuff too, so it's a mixed bag. And then I don't know who's doing what completely. I just talked to Ben because we do the podcast a lot.
Yep.
I think it's not fully decided, maybe based because of scheduling, and I think the Wrigley Field thing. I don't know if that's been figured out either yet. So
hopefully we get our guy Voskers back on there too.
I actually was texting him today to ask him about that, and he said he didn't know yet.
Because he was doing football last week. He's doing some other things, volleyball. He does everything.
He's a versatile guy, man.
Yeah.
I think that's look, man. I think he got a bit of a raw deal. He was put in a tough spot going after a legend, but I think also his best attribute is that he's good at so many different sports. And then he goes and does
all over
the
Olympics.
I don't even know what he was doing. Was it some shooting or whatever?
Kayak.
He did kayak, but I think in the past he did pistol or something too.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just think his talent is that he's so versatile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kind of joked. I'm like, because I think baseball, he kind of came up on baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And last year the White Sox lost their play-by-play guy. And I was like, dude, you should take that. Because I think he's fantastic at baseball. And then the guy they brought in had a rough year. I mean, the team had a rough year, obviously. But But the fans were hard on the play-by-play guy last year, and I just thought Voskers would have been perfect for it. But timing's everything, and he was still with the Hawks at that time. So all good things.
One of our producers who used to do the Minnesota games is now producing White Sox, and he had a rough season. Chris Withers, he's been around the scene for Minnesota for a while. He's been doing the White Sox for a while, and He's like, boy, that's a tough season.
It's it's sad. It's very reminiscent of the old 2000 Blackhawks of when their games weren't on television, which
Ooh.
they are right now because of the whole. They have a brand new network now,
Yeah.
and not all the Comcast hasn't picked it up. YouTube TV hasn't picked it up yet. All that bogus. So it's a different reason, but it just old owner, old school values that isn't changing with the times. That's kind of what's going on with the White Sox, and it's tough being a fan of them right now. So,
but
anyways,
thanks for coming on the show, though.
Yeah, man, awesome. Always.
And you'll stay for overtime a little bit here, won't you?
Of course.
Vigs, what do you have in the hopper right now?
Just more coverage at Gopher hockey. We'll see what happens this weekend with Penn State.
That should be fun. It should be fun. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. We got to thank Cappy again, but next week we'll have Todd Molesky on as the Gophers head to Madison for the weekend. For those of you listening live, stay tuned for overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast.
I'm audibling my beer of the week. I was going to have this guy, which is my usual dark stout, but I had a can malfunction. And I'm wondering if it's double canned or something because the tab didn't want to work. And I'm not sure I want to aggressively go after it with
yeah, you don't need some exploding on you.
So I'm not going to do that tonight.
I'm here for the entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a medical kit down here somewhere, but I'm just going to go with the backup beer, which is a fresh hop Mosaic IPA from Castle Danger.
Nice.
Fresh hop. I mean, it's fresh hop season.
Is it? I don't even know.
Yeah, the harvest hopefully is in.
Okay.
I've seen some fresh hop beers around. This one's a good one.
Ciders, right? Cider season, all that fall crap, right?
So I'm getting this warning I'm recording. Cappy has low storage space.
On what?
Must be on the device you're using to
iPad?
do the show. Yeah.
I don't know.
It says it's uploading. It just says low disk space, whatever that means.
What does that mean? I mean, for you, for the show, does that matter?
We might not be able to get you. See, it's recording all of us individually as well.
Right.
And it's nice to be able to use a full res image, like if just one of us is talking instead of this big thing or just three of us vertical.
Right.
I've been trying to do some different things with some social media and whatnot.
Yeah, no, your guys' stuff is definitely your game is.
We're trying.
Values.
This old guy is trying to learn to do different things.
There you go. Like,
and I want to go back and
beard.
And that's an Amish Santa.
How many months is that?
3.
That's okay. I was gonna say like 6, but 3's not bad. 3's
yeah,
bad.
I can't get anything up here to really fill out, and it's dark.
Yeah, you kind of got the rosy red cheeks, man. You got
Well, that's just me being sick too. I've been kind of coughing all day, and
not enough Italian blood in the juke.
Oh, sorry, but no Italian blood.
So is it cold there yet? Is it still? I got my doors and screens open, and I'm like, this is the last hours of this.
Crystal meth Santa. Gee, thanks, Chris.
Crystal meth Santa.
I mean, it's cooling down right now. It was like 80 yesterday.
No,
so
super windy.
It was
I
super
flew
nice
in yesterday, and the pilot, I had to keep the plane. He had to battle it a little bit on the, landing. I'm glad I'm here. But yeah, no, today it was 75 still here, but I think tomorrow for Halloween it's the beginning of the end, sadly.
Notre Dame mascot.
Notre Dame, yeah. Just diet green.
Jupe looks like Jack Frost from the Santa Claus.
Wait, wasn't that
Martin Short?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
So I had it grow for 3 months during the summer. I'm like, I'm sick of it. I'll take it off. And as soon as I took it off, I'm like, nope.
Back.
My chin is too fat. This covers it up a bit. So I'm like, screw it. I'll just grow it back. So this is since the, yeah.
It's a good. You kind of got a little Christmas. Just you know, say just a Christmas vibe to it.
Christmas vibe. Yeah.
Christmas vibe.
You need to wear red and green. Maybe not red. Stick with the green, maybe.
Green and white.
Green and white.
It went over at the very first drag show I had ever been to this past weekend.
It went well.
Apparently, the person saw me, wanted to talk to me a lot.
Hey now. There you go.
Yeah, we did we did it at the Chanhassen Dinner Theater. It was kind of a surprise. You know what? I had a blast. It was fun.
Yeah.
They're having so much fun up there, and yeah, she's like she's like
they them
whatever they call them. She's like you kind of got that Kenny Rogers Santa thing going.
Going a lot of different ways.
3 outs from the World Series for the Dodgers.
Oh, is it that close still? Last time I saw it was 5-5, but what is it now?
7-6 Dodgers going to the bottom of the ninth.
Ooh, what a shame.
I know. I don't really want either of them to win, but I wouldn't mind seeing another game. But
sorry about that.
I don't know. The Dodgers
Friday
have been
night anyway. I won't be able to watch it.
Dodgers have been fun to watch down the stretch here.
They got entertaining players. I just they're by their their payroll's like $600 million.
Yeah,
and half of it's not even playing.
Yeah, but when you see the Yankees fans do what they did yesterday, it just makes you want them to lose even more.
Oh no, I think I still would want the Yankees to lose. I just wouldn't mind seeing another game. But
yeah,
the next 2 games are Friday and Saturday, and I'll be working anyway. So I was really happy that they put the Penn State Ohio State football game at noon because that was the only way I was going to be able to watch that game on Saturday.
You were pretty stressed out against that Nebraska game. I saw you were tweeting a bit. You were like pissed off.
I was pissed because they just looked flat and the effort and stupid. Like it's the one team that I have that you expect. It's kind of like Gopher hockey. You expect greatness every freaking time.
Yep.
And they just lost to Indiana 56-7, and they barely beat them. And it just the way the game was going. I didn't like play like the coach. The coaches were just as bad. It just was pissing me off. Coming off a bye week too, it's like, come on, man.
What's with Indiana though? Are they still undefeated?
Dude. Oh yeah, and their quarterback didn't play last week. I think I'm more worried about that game than any of the other games, including this Saturday.
Did you hear what their coach said when he got hired at his opening press conference?
I just win. Google me.
Google me.
Right? He said, I just win. Google me.
Yep. I was like, all right. I'm excited to see how this goes.
And he's making it up. And I guess he has some clause in his contract for Big Ten wins that he is just raking in the cash right now. Good for him. It's all worth it for Indiana. They had game day there last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's huge money for the school. So he's earning every dollar that he's getting for those wins. But, yeah.
Indiana quietly has a lot of NIL money, I think, for basketball and football.
Sure.
Like, you wouldn't think it really, but they've got a lot of big donors for their stuff.
Well, you'd think for basketball for sure, because they've been shit, to be honest. Like, when's the last time they were like a top 20 team, so that's, the big sport. But I'm going to sneak down and try to see Hasty before the game Friday night just to get, because we weren't able to talk this week. So like, man, I just wonder, this is the first time I can't remember him having a team like this start out in any level that he's coached, juniors to maybe when he was in Omaha as an associate head, but he wasn't a head coach. So it'd be interesting to see two very similar teams in terms of the offense. One line, the other ones are not scoring. So, but I don't know. I don't know. I just can't believe some of those guys, like, Mankato guys that are there now, they're doing.
Tassie and Fitzgerald should be
What are we doing there?
doing something, yeah.
Like, you think sometimes it's the second year guys, they get better the second year because now you're there, right? You've been there, you're acclimated. I think it's a weird thing when a guy comes in as, like, say, a senior. You're a senior, but you're brand new, so you're kind of like a freshman. I don't care how comfortable they make you feel. It's still kind of a weird dynamic. And that happens
New
all over.
school,
You
new
just don't know
town.
what you're gonna
It's a
get.
big difference.
It's huge. And sometimes it can come out perfectly for you. And sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it doesn't work out at all.
Do we know if Wood came in early this year, Viggs, and spent some time with the guys?
Yeah, he was around a lot this summer. That was kind of the message from the coach is, hey, don't go all over the country like we've done the last couple of years. Stick around, be teammates, push each other, do some bonding.
Get to know each other, yeah.
Get to know each other, and they did it. And they took that message to heart, and everyone stuck around.
Clearly they
including Wood.
like each other. Hey, man, it's not a perfect world. There were guys that drove you crazy. There's no teammate, no team you're ever on that there wasn't somebody on your team that, I wouldn't say you didn't like, but maybe just drove you crazy, or you're around these guys all the time. But, the chemistry can you fall into that perfect chemistry sometimes, and maybe they have that. It's a good start. That was the other thing I was ragging on, like, with the rankings. I'm like, all people saw was Minnesota lost. One, it's in overtime, so that almost is, it's like an exhibition kind of when you lose in overtime. And two, the shots were 54-17. If you can't look at those two things, look, I'm not saying Omaha didn't deserve to win. Goalie played great, but come on. It's not like it's not the same a loss as a loss. Let's just call it the way it is.
Yeah, but I would say, though, that BC and BU have a strong schedule. They're playing everybody.
Michigan has the hardest conference schedule, I think. They say, St. Cloud, Minnesota State, BU, and Arizona State was ranked before the season. I don't know if that's, whatever with that. I don't think they're a bad team. I think they're okay. That's pretty tough. That's a pretty tough non-conference game.
And that's why it's important that Minnesota doesn't have a tough conference schedule, that they just win them all or as much as they can, Viggs.
Yeah, and the Big Ten looks strong in the interconference record stuff.
Per usual.
Yeah, they're over 700. The LIU Notre Dame probably doesn't help, and then Wisconsin doesn't help, but everyone else is doing pretty well. So,
and they usually do, right?
Yep.
Penn State, they lost to Quinnipiac, tough game, but they went on the road to Alaska. They didn't play a home game till mid-October, which is
rare
ever. They never play any road games, and good. I'm glad they did, and maybe it'll benefit them. Like, I think teams now are going to start trying to schedule harder non-conference games, because there are certain games that only thing they can do is hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
If you sweep, it doesn't help you, and if you don't sweep, it hurts you.
So I just saw a comment when Eric Howla just won a fight. Faber was just on a fight. Was it last night, Viggs? Did the guy come off the bench?
He did, which is supposed to be discipline from.
But wait, he was a sixth player skater?
Well, he was about to
a line
tussle
change.
So
it was a line change. So somebody came off and he came on and fought, which you're not supposed to do.
Really?
And it was Crosby that he was going after too.
5-on-5.
Yeah, the guy was like a stick length away from the bench when he came on. So it wasn't like they had too many, but he came on and went right into the fight.
Interesting.
So
good for Faves. It was a solid fight.
Yeah.
Nobody really won it. He's bigger. When I saw him in person, he looked bigger to me. That's all I got. He just looked bigger, like he was taller or something.
Dodgers win.
Oh, did they? Oh, I'm delayed here by half a second.
That's what Steve says.
What a choke job. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was 5-0. I think they had the bases. They had the base load, a dribbler to first base, and Cole stops running. He should have went to cover, and so Rizzo would flip him the ball. He stopped running, thinking Rizzo would be able to get it and run it to first, and nothing happened. Betts beats it out. They score a run, and then they go on. That would have been 5. That would have been inning over 5-0. Instead,
Mhm.
Dodgers get 5 runs that inning with 2 outs and tie the game. If they don't get that, it's probably not coming back. So Garrett Cole's going to catch some shit for that, especially in New York. I mean, of all places.
Were you a baseball guy growing up, Cappy?
Yeah, I mean, playing.
Did you
I
fit it
played
in?
baseball and hockey were my 2 sports.
Okay.
Played through 14 years old. Then high school was like, hey, we're gonna need you in January. I'm like, well,
Kind of busy.
I'm not, and I wasn't good in like if there's certain guys you make exceptions for. I feel like that happens in every sport, and I just wasn't that good. So
I actually played Little League baseball in the summer in New Jersey.
oh, nice. Like that age, 12-year-old Little League.
11 and 12. Yep.
Nice.
Little League's a lot bigger out there than it is out here. It's not as big of a deal here in Minnesota, but I would, parents divorced. I'd go to my dad's in the summer. He would get me a spot on their team, and I'd play the last, 5-6 games.
Nice.
So played some baseball, but the funny thing is the year I was 12 years old. So this must have been, or I was turning 12 or whatever, 1984, 85. The whole league there in New Jersey took a field trip to Williamsport and played some games at Williamsport in the stadium.
Sweet.
So I was not a good baseball player, but I must say I thought it was a cool childhood memory to be able to go there and play baseball in that stadium.
It would be cool.
That was I played that age, but we played Bronco instead of Little League, which is we played regular baseball rules, like you could lead off and all that, and steal. We actually went to the Bronco World Series in California. Like our team made it all the way through I think there were like 4 regional zone, all this stuff, and played against a team from Puerto Rico, and their pitcher was not 12. There's no way 12. Like, I think like 4 guys hit the ball. Like, they just smoked us, and they did not look like 12-year-olds.
And I honestly didn't know the rules of Little League back then either. You talk about, leading off.
Yeah.
First time I ever get on base playing Little League, I start, walking 6, 7, 8 feet, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
That's funny. Were you playing baseball at home too? I mean, did you play at home too?
Well, I was always visiting my dad's during the summer because
Okay.
it was that type of divorce. He was in the Army, so he would be traveling around.
Gotcha.
It's just those couple of years he was in New Jersey. They had a local team he could get me on. So
Nice.
otherwise, I would come play soccer in the fall, which has killed my knees.
Did you play baseball?
I played baseball. I did not make the Little League team from my group that went to the playoffs and stuff,
Right.
but they went to like the regional final. So I played with
one
that
stop
group.
away from Williamsport.
One stop away. They lost in I think it was like an extra innings or something. They lost to not go to Williamsport. But then when I was in high school, I played baseball like to my freshman year, and I also did musicals at my school, which were in the spring.
Versatile.
And it did not work well to try to play baseball and do musicals. So I did like track, and then I did some golf once I figured out that golf was really a good thing to do in the spring.
Yeah.
And then after college, I played town ball for a couple of years in
Oh,
Minnesota. So hardball, wood bat, pretty fun.
Town ball
was
is
a
so
fall
good.
for us. Golf was a fall sport in high school for us. So I couldn't do that. I guess I couldn't have done golf either side. Maybe in the spring, I guess, if it was the spring, summer, but would have liked to. Golf would have been fun to like get taught a little at coaching. Never had any coaching. All self-taught or whatever. Self-figure it out. I don't know. What do I have to learn how to putt?
I played for the Webster Sox and the Dakota Rice Scott.
Webster, Minnesota, down by New Prague.
What a great name, Webster Sox.
Yeah, there's like a little German restaurant in the town that we'd sometimes go to and have too many beers after practice or games.
What's the name of the place? I was just there, I think,
I can't
a couple months ago.
It feels like a lifetime ago because it was before I met my
Brever will know.
my bride.
Brever, what's the
your
place
single
in
swinging days, huh?
Webster?
Yep.
Ranchero. There you go. The Ranchero. That's the one right
Mhm.
there in Webster.
Yep. So it was fun. We had a couple guys from St. Olaf that joined the team,
Oh, nice.
and I kind of did whatever I could do. We were not very good when I was playing there, but it was baseball. It was something to do. So I'd play men's league hockey 2 or 3 nights a week. I'd have my baseball 2 nights a week, and then I'd play some golf the other 2, 3 nights.
Nice.
So I was a busy guy.
I'll ask you guys this because I haven't watched. I've watched mostly highlights of Minnesota. What does Airy look like? What type of game does he play in net?
He is on his pads a lot. He is that
Okay.
modern goalie who's very comfortable in that
That
reverse
half
VH.
D against the post or whatever. And all
Yeah. And so he's very much in that mindset of just being big.
that? Okay.
He likes to handle the puck. He's pretty aggressive coming out to the play on shots. He seems like a technical goalie, one who really does like those T pushes and stops and sets kind of stuff. So he looks like a goalie should look, I think. It's just he's on his pads a lot more than we're used to seeing at Minnesota, sliding around. So it's hard to know.
It's easier when you're his height, though, too.
But he hasn't been tested really. Like I feel like he's gotten. Suliera had the one. Didn't he? Suliera had 29 saves in the
UMD game was tough.
Duluth game, and that first game got weird because it was a blow. I was watching it, and it was a blowout, and then they got a couple fluky goals, and I'm listening to the UMD broadcast, and the guy, you could hear the hope in the guy, and I'm like, you poor fella. I mean, I get it, it's your team, but I'm like, dude, you're starting to annoy me. There's no chance, dude, that you're gonna win this game. But like a lot of fluky goals, and but I felt like the second game, obviously, so they got tested. That's maybe the only game they've given up a good amount of shots.
Yeah. So Motzko this week said, we need to get punched in the mouth because I don't know what we got. Like I really don't.
Well, that's
know.
what I mean. You got all daisies and roses and daisies so far.
Yeah,
Even in the loss to Omaha, they didn't get punched in the mouth that game.
No, they controlled the game from start to finish. They just got a little unlucky. I remember one year the Gophers got off to a really good stretch. I think it was maybe Motzko's first year. And then they started playing some tough games. And he's like, oh, I wish I would have known this about this team 8 weeks ago when we started camp in August. We have a lot of work to do. But they didn't see it until a couple games into the season. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case with this group. But the goaltending is obviously one of the question marks. And the face-offs, that's going to be a question mark for this group. So
I'm just looking at their schedule, though. But when are they going to get punched in the mouth? December
Michigan
13th?
State. Yeah.
Michigan's not going to punch them in the mouth. Michigan
No.
it'll be good games, but I don't know if they could lose to Michigan, but those are both at home. I mean, maybe Bemidji, home and home. Maybe at Bemidji, it'll be a tough game. Maybe they got to grind one out there or something, but and obviously Madison, look, Wisconsin's just, if they had this 1-5 in the middle of the season, I don't know. I mean, it's just bad. It looks really bad to start a season. 1-5.
Like, is Notre Dame a team that can punch you in the mouth? I mean, they usually play that lockdown style that's hard to play against.
I don't know. They've looked really good every Friday night. They've won by 4 or 5 to 1, but then they just look not. They got shut out by 1-0 at Alaska, who hadn't won a game. And that's the other thing Jeff Jackson said. Hey, both teams had not won a game in that Saturday game, and he's like, I don't know what our team is doing. They're sitting at home on Saturday, maybe watching the Notre Dame football game, and lose a little. I get it. I was watching our games. I was watching Ohio State football games on Saturday afternoon if we were playing. Hell, our crowd, if the game was a 3:30 game and our game was at like 6 or 7, you'd hear the crowd would be out in the carousel watching the game on TV until it ended if it was a close game, and then all of a sudden there'd be 6,000 people in the seats, but at the start there were only 2,000. They're all in the building, but they're all watching the game in the
Concourse. Yeah.
Yes, on the concourse. So it's just like, there might be something to it, but you can't use that. You can use that once, but they did it 2 weeks in a row. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if they don't have the gun. They don't have the firepower. Knuebel's a really good player, but I just don't know he can carry enough offense.
How many goals Minnesota averaging is like 5.5 or something like that? It's pretty high. Yeah.
Omaha, they got 1, right? But
every other game is 5, 7, 8, 6. It's been pretty easy.
I know Bob said it. It's funny because 3 of the guys are the same D, but like the D core of 2 years ago, this one might be a little better than 2 years ago. Although that was just, you had Lacombe, Faber, Johnson, and then you had these 3 that are there now still: Chesley, Middlestat, Kester, and then you have Thomas, Renzel, Gruba counts as the 6th, I guess.
Yep, and then Whipple 7th. He's getting like 8-9 minutes. He's getting like 8-9 minutes. Okay. He doesn't play the first half of the first period usually,
right?
And then they start to fit him in a little bit after 10 minutes of the game. He's a physical guy. Like he skates well.
Did you ever ask Bob about that? Because I remember you mentioned it last year, or when Kester decided to come back. Does it maybe they have a conversation to ask if he wanted to play another year junior?
They did. He wanted to be here.
Okay.
He wanted to be here. He didn't want to go play juniors. They said, there's not going to be a lot of ice time for you this year if you come. Our top 6 is pretty good.
Depending on injury and whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, he's like, our top 6 is pretty good. It's going to be a tough year for ice time. So if you come, that's the understanding. And he wanted to be here anyway.
No, I respect that. I just wasn't sure if that ever he had the choice or how it really broke down.
Because like Becca Hendrickson was kind of the same thing. It's like, if you come, there's not going to be a lot of ice time for you here. We think, juniors might be a better fit for you. And he went back for last year.
Last year, right.
So he played that extra year in Dubuque.
And they had to add Clark late, right?
Yep.
It's going to be interesting next year, man, because that hearing is what, in 9 days, the 9th?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like it's almost a guarantee.
Done deal.
August 1st next year.
Yep. Shock if it doesn't. So you're going to have all these new players eligible, or whatever you want to call it, and you have roster locks at 26. Which, there's going to be more players. You can have deeper teams. But you can't. You have to be more pick selective, and it's gonna be weird. Maybe not for Minnesota as much but there's gonna be some other areas of the country in terms of teams that are gonna have some interesting conversations this summer. The health settlement, is that the cops? Which one is that?
I think he's referring to the 26 players,
which also can all be under scholarship too, which is interesting. I don't think that's going to happen at most places, but.
Well, Denver's going to go full scholarships.
26 players?
Yep. That's what Carl said.
Only one?
Well, North Dakota, they'll go full scholarships for their roster.
Yeah. Gophers would add, right? They would, if necessary.
Yeah, it sounds like they would. I don't think St. Cloud would or Duluth would, but
Michigan.
Yeah.
So he's saying the DU would opt into the settlement if they were going to do that.
Well, I think they're going to find out. I don't know if they're going to do it through the settlement or if they're going to do it through like an NIL deal.
True.
Right.
Because tuition at Denver is like $100,000 a year, and so players can qualify for aid. Yeah. It's $100K.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So I think they can get some financial aid through their school and make it so it's all
different way to do it than the
different way to do it. but
And
they
then
want
Brewer,
to
yeah.
fully fund everything.
NIL is taxable income for an athlete.
That's funny. These kids wouldn't have any idea. What do you mean I'm only getting this much? Taxes? What?
Brewer's
I'm a student. I don't
he-
pay taxes yet.
he's the resident lawyer, so
No, I know.
Brewer knows his
Like
stuff.
joking about it. I'm joking about it. Like that taxes. I didn't know what a tax was until I got in the East Coast League, and I'm like, wait, I thought I was making this much a week.
And we'll see how many of these major junior kids can get into college. I don't know if you read the articles like at the Boston Players about their nutrition, and there was a college guy who's living with a major junior guy.
Yeah,
and he's like, okay, I'm gonna make this. How do I boil pasta? And the guy's like, are you kidding me?
I know a lot of guys that can't cook, but that's pretty bad.
Like,
you can't make mac and cheese.
You can't put a pot of water on the stove. You've never seen that done before?
My poor cousin wasn't very good at that either. And he's got a pretty good job. So, no, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe not many will be going to Notre Dame or Harvard or Cornell.
And that, a lot of times that's what players are doing. They knew they weren't going to make it in college. So they're like, I'm not as smart as the average guy. I'm going up there.
I want to see if in any way, this is a very long shot or I would love it, but I don't know. But I'm wondering if the West Coast teams this winter and whatnot pay attention to what goes on with hockey maybe and sees the crowds at Gophers and Michigan State and Yost and Penn State and all that. And I don't know. I'm just kind of just talking, but a place like Oregon, so much money there, the Nike money, Washington, they've got Seattle Kraken are new there. I'm just dying for a team to get into and I'm just,
here we go.
Round two.
12 ounces because I lost my big stout.
It looks bigger than 12 ounces. That looks like a liter. But no, I don't know. I'm just talking out loud in terms of that stuff. I just wonder now that all those areas get the Big Ten network, so they'll be able to see it. They didn't see it, right? Unless you paid for it. I don't know. Just talking out loud.
I do think Brewer's right here. Spending the money of the revenue sharing and starting a program, I think it's going to be hard for the Power 4 schools. Maybe there's a non-Power 4 school that wants to add hockey somehow. I don't know how that would work, but
yeah, but they're not Big Ten. I just don't think there's a pathway for them to add another affiliate member. It'd have to be like North Dakota, honestly. And I don't think they would do it with the educate. I don't know. I don't want to knock down North Dakota, but it's not. They didn't do Arizona State because they wouldn't be up to the academic standard, from what I was told.
Yep.
So, Anyway, give us an 8th team, please. This is annoying as hell. And it's nobody's fault. Except for maybe Nebraska. They should have hockey. They got a rink. They could get a women's team, too. The fans would go to that, too.
I would think, Iowa. There's not much in Iowa, for sports.
Too. They got a perfect rink.
Yeah, they've got a good rink. And they've got USHL teams there that would be easy to recruit, you would think.
Oh, the fans, you sell booze there already for the coast team. Mm-hmm. The students would love to go to hockey. It would just be, yeah.
I still like the Northwestern one too. Nice private school outside Chicago.
They're building $1 billion football stadium for a team that's never good.
Are they
will
really?
Never be good.
It looks beautiful. It looks beautiful.
$1 billion on a football stadium. $1 billion for a mediocre occasionally has a maybe above 500 season.
Draws what 25,000, 20,000 for a football
of their
game.
own fans, maybe.
Well, at least they've made it to the Rose Bowl in the last 50 years.
Not in the last 20 though.
Still,
I don't know. It's $1 billion. It seems like that's a lot of money. You could throw
yes, it is.
100, 60, 80.
And start a hockey team for that. Speaking of building buildings, have you heard anything about Ohio State and their rink?
I mean, it's the most positive I've heard. Last time I talked to one of my JB late summer when I kind of try to get the info on all the new coming players for each team, and he said, I mean, the president of the university, the new president, played hockey at Army and is a hockey guy. And the story of last year when I was there doing a Michigan game, after the game I went up there. And after the game, I went and talked to Coach Gralla because I didn't see him before. And, he was pissed off about this and this. And then he gets to a story what happened. And they're playing Friday night. And after the first period, it's how their season went last year. They were the better team the whole first period, but couldn't score and ended up being down 1-0 after the first, and then lost the game. Well, after that first period, Rollick goes into the locker room to, late in the third, right before to go out for the second period, give his kind of like little speech before they go out. And all of a sudden he turns around and the president of the university comes in and starts giving his own speech about how the first period went and what they need to do better.
Oh,
And Rollick just like looked and then he's like, take it. And he did it. So I'm like, I loved hearing that because that means he's into it. He's got their back. He's trying to put the funding together and do it the right way. They're waiting. They wanted to see how they're waiting to see how the paying the players thing comes out. That's the other thing, right? Is how the money for paying the university is now going to start paying the athletes, right?
mm-hmm.
And I think they're waiting to figure out how that's going to shake down. But it sounds, if they're ever going to get a new rink, it's with the new AD he's not a hockey guy, but he's an aggressive, wants new things, and he's not afraid to spend the money. And then they got the backing of the president of the university, who's trying to help fund it too. So I tell you, if it's going to happen, it's now, or in the next, it's going to happen. While he's there. So
I think they have a facilities meeting for their trustees on November 11th or 12th. And I'm just like, is there going to be any mention of the hockey
about
rink?
Ohio State does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their facilities committee meets coming up here shortly.
Yeah, I mean, everyone else has a new the volleyball's got a new place, wrestling, soccer, like all the outdoor sports.
Lacrosse.
Those are, less expensive, I mean, to build. But you can't ignore the fact that they have the best women's program now, or top two. It's 1 and 2, which is amazing. In that, I mean, you guys never seen it. They play in it's not even a men's league rink.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so. I think it's going to happen now. I like before the coach. I never heard JB talk like this because he's not pessimistic. He got so tired of being hopeful from the past regime, and then he kept knocking it back. Where this time, he's cautiously optimistic. That's how I'd put it. So, I hope it happens. I think it'll help both programs. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Brever's like listing ranks here. I mean, most of the high school ranks in Minnesota are better than Ohio State.
I mean, you're looking at like West Side,
ranks,
Yackle, Highland, South. It's not a nice rink over there in Ohio State.
No,
it would make so much sense.
Yes.
Well, right. I mean, last year, what was it? 2 years ago, they had we're going to build this 3,000 seat for just the women and the mental practice there. And I'm like, why would you do that? Yeah. And honestly, look, I don't know Gene Smith, but it just seemed like he did not want that on his plate ever, the last AD. And now he's retired and go enjoy retirement, but let's someone else come in and do things right, because I think they've earned it. I mean, both have been pretty successful, and look, the atmosphere is not that bad in there. Like last year, the Michigan series, they cut off the whole top, so they have like it blacked out. So there's about 8,000 seats, right? And they were full last year for both those games. And yeah, you're not going to get that at the new place. They'll probably get a 6,000 seat max, but it'll probably be a louder and tighter.
Yeah.
That hopefully they would do a good job in terms of architecture to make it allowed. Have a student section and the right
A dog section.
I mean, just the dogs too. I love that. That's great to have. That's a good thing. I mean, we're not
Yes.
making fun of it. We think it's cool.
Oh,
But
love
that's
it.
like a cool thing. Like, have that as your thing. You know.
Well, and the new building allows you to put in some like club seating, luxury
state-of-the-art
seating,
stuff.
and every person I talk to in athletics says you almost rarely have a problem selling premium seats.
Right.
You know, you're
Well,
gonna
you
find a
have
market
season
for
tickets.
those,
You're gonna get them sold out. They might not be full every time, but they're gonna be sold.
right? And that's just revenue you can count on every season.
Yep. Yeah.
Because like even the U, as they look at like that second phase of renovations at Mariucci, they're like,
Sure.
how could we put another like premium section somewhere in the building?
It could be tiny, but it might gain you an easy $50,000. Just boom, and that
Mhm.
might not take a ton of effort to do that. They put those lounge chairs in by the boards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are, why not? A lazy boy right on the glass.
Yeah, we got pictures in those before they started covering them up, Jupe. Right?
We did.
What's
We got pictures of them before they even installed them.
what's the average revenue? I don't know if they can calculate this. The average revenue per game from alcohol sales.
Ooh.
It's not as much as you'd think. Like gross sales, like top game is like 100,000.
Okay, but that's 100,000 they weren't getting before.
There's a lot of expenses that go with it, but the revenue side
Half
for
of
a
that,
top
maybe.
for like when North Dakota comes, they might sell $100,000 worth of stuff.
Sure.
So
Okay, but you're not losing money. You're making
You're not
money
losing money.
every game.
mhm.
So, well, I mean, everyone's doing it now, so it's not like a secret or anything. I just, Minnesota's got one of the bigger arenas. I still can't. It still looks like a brand new arena to me when I see it with the
Really?
shrunken ice. The lighting is different.
Yeah, the lighting does. throw you
That
off.
was last year. Obviously last year, the shrinking ice and the lighting, it looked like a different arena. Like it looked like a new arena.
How did you watch Friday's game? How did it look for Friday?
Just
'Cause I was there.
I watched some of it. I
Okay.
wasn't able to watch. I was more watching Notre Dame and Wisconsin,
Yeah.
kind of, whatever, prepping a little bit more. But it looked. I saw all the highlights of the goals, and they were kind of fun to watch. And I truly think they've got, like, it's not a jinx or anything. I just think they got the best roster. The goaltending thing is the one thing,
Yep.
because Michigan State will grind you down, and Trey Augustine will make those saves maybe, and that's how they lose that game. BC's got Jacob Fowler. Denver's got Davis. I'm thinking at the end here. I'm not.
Yeah.
Thinking,
We're thinking St.
BC's
Louis,
got Karan.
Fargo.
He's pretty good, but experienced.
But-
Arian and Steelier's got experience. He could end up being the guy.
I mean, they're the top team in goals so far, and Snuggerud hasn't gotten going.
That's okay. I mean, I think
But if he gets going
pressure
and
off.
everyone else is going,
sure.
That's
Or it might
tough.
be a time where he rips off a big weekend and nobody else is scoring
Yeah.
for a while. If they all get going, you want to see that in March and April.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, you want the timing of that. But I haven't watched his manner. Does he look like frustrated throughout game? Is he not trying enough?
No, I'm not seeing that. I'm just seeing the frustration after the goalie makes a save. I'm
Sure.
not seeing it carry over into his play,
Sure.
like where he's
That's
disengaged and like
Right.
cheating, like
That's
flying
what
the
we
zone.
saw.
Like he's not doing that stuff.
Towards the end of last year, even in the regional, it wasn't good.
Mm-mm.
I mean, and Pitlick was like they were their top guys. They could have. I mean, that goal Tough one. That goal doesn't go in, that crappy little goal from the side of the net, and they probably win that game. That early goal, or not early goal, the BU first goal that kind of was just a fluke on the side of the net.
Yeah.
That doesn't go in, they probably win that game. And
Yeah, because it's
without
2-0
some of their
at that
better
time.
players playing well, to be honest. Anyway, revision of history. But
I'm gonna have to call it early
Yeah,
here tonight, guys.
I was
I'm
just about to
sick
bring
and
up,
I'm sick of coughing.
I got to be done before 11:30. I have to. I'm just happy I'm in Chicago now, so it's not 12:30.
True.
But I won't be happy tomorrow once it's in the 50s and it's raining and windy. And
I don't mind it.
I'm
ready.
going trick or treating with my nephew tomorrow, so tomorrow my mind is a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes here.
Maybe I'll
Yeah, it's gonna be a
I'll
little
may have-
trickier here.
Find a mask to wear that I can keep me warm and dry.
And my kids have little colds too, and they're so excited. So we'll see how it goes.
Rocking and rolling, man. They want their candy.
I know it's been a long week already. So
Dad's gonna be sneaking his Snickers bars and Reese's cups because kids don't eat peanut butter. That's what I've now because they don't let them have it at school because of the allergies.
Yeah.
that's right.
I heard that's why they don't. I'm like, kids from probably my age, even like I'd say by age 30 and up, everyone loves Reese's cups, and the kids now are like, well, what are those? Or I don't really know them, or I don't like peanut butter. You probably never tasted peanut butter because you're not allowed to have it or whatever. Anyways, gentlemen,
All right.
great.
All right, we're going to say goodnight to everyone else. Stay on for just a second here, Cappy,
Sure.
and we'll hopefully get everyone uploaded and done to go. But good night, folks.